First caller is going to be Akil. Is that right, Akil? You are up first, sir. Hello.
Yeah, hi Bart.
How's it going, Akil?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. And where are you playing out of, Akil?
This hand is out of Lucky Chances in the San Francisco area.
Lucky Chances. Lucky Chances in the San Francisco area. Lucky Chances has been around for a long, long time. And as I always say, with these Bay Area hands, you've got that small blind on the button that always used to do me in.
This game actually doesn't have that.
Really?
A lot of the games in the area do, but this one is just 3-5 small blind, big blind.
Really?
And it's always played with a $10 straddle.
Is it just Lucky Chances that doesn't do the small on the button?
Yeah, I think it's
Okay.
just Lucky Chances, and then like the tribal casinos like
Right.
Grayton
Grayton.
and the others, they don't do that either. But the other ones, yes. And
Bay 101 and Matrix.
yeah, Lucky Chances does have a 1-2-2 game where the 1 is on the button. But the 3-5 is just 3-5.
So this is 3-5 plus 10, mandatory straddle?
Yes, it's pretty much mandatory. Like everyone does it. And once in a great while, there'll be someone that doesn't straddle, but 99% of the time, everyone's straddling.
What's the buy-in max for this game?
It's 1500 max.
All right, 1500 max. And how deep are you guys?
So for this hand, we are 2200 effective.
All right, so 2200 effective at Lucky Chances, 3-5, pretty much always straddle, 1500 buy-in, 2200 effective. All right. And I think you're a first-time caller too, right?
Yeah. I've been watching your channel for like a year and a half, but this is my first time calling in.
All right, so start us off here.
So I am under the gun, which is like first after the straddle, with the 10 of clubs and 10 of diamonds.
10 of clubs, 10 of diamonds, okay.
So I raise it up to 30.
30, is that about the standard open?
It is. I think some people open to 35 or 40, but a lot of people open to 30.
All right, so under the gun-ish, pocket 10s to 30, okay.
And then, so this hand is only 7-handed.
Okay.
It's a 9 max table, but there were 2 people away for this hand. And then it folds around to the cutoff who calls. And then it folds around to the straddle. So the button and blinds fold, and the straddle 3 bets to 135.
All right, so the cutoff calls and the straddle 3 bets to 135. And if you've listened to my stuff here, Akil, what I just find that's somewhat interesting about this, I mean, you have just, let's look at preflop here. So you have a dead caller in the cutoff. So that will incentivize the straddle to squeeze more. Whereas if it were heads up, especially against an early position raiser, you definitely see a reflection of a lot of strong hands just called. And it is interesting to note that the straddle, of course, doesn't have to worry about anybody squeezing to his left. So there's a lot of in-between hands here that will find a call, not like, say, in the small blind. So usually this is somewhat of strength. And I don't even know if I would throw in, you know, you get your occasional 3-bet squeeze with a hand like 7-8 suited, 5-6 suited. But yeah, I'm usually not going to do that against a UTG open here. So there's that. So he goes to 135. Okay.
Yeah. And then I decided to just call. I thought about 4-betting to drive the cutoff out, but or if 10s is strong enough for that.
Well, you have one of these in-between hands in the sense that, right, you're incentivized to 4-bet, right, because you got a dead call, whereas you'd probably almost always just call if you were heads up. But it's like...
Because I have position.
Yeah, you have position, no one else is in the hand. But here, it's like 10s and jacks, I think, are those kind of special ones where it's like, oh, God, I kind of want a 4-bet here, but is it strong enough to 4-bet? Now, you have stack depth, though, too, so it's not like one of the... Where it gets really strange is when you're in a situation like this and you can't really 4-bet without committing yourself. That is very problematic with an in-between hand. Here you could. So there is a case to be made for 4-betting. But okay, so you call, and what does the cutoff do behind you?
The cutoff ended up folding.
All right, so the cutoff folds. So somebody in the live chat said, Mathematical said, do you have any type of background or profile on the straddle guy?
I guess I hadn't seen too many showdowns. What I'd seen so far was that he was a little loose, but not necessarily too aggressive. So he was doing a lot of calling, sometimes even double flatting after someone 3-bet preflop, and just the kind of person that wants to see a lot of flops.
The guy in the straddle is?
Yes.
So you think this is probably more indicative of, I would say, strength then, right?
I guess so, yeah.
Okay. I mean...
Yeah, I'd seen him doing a lot more calling than 3-betting preflop so far.
There is some chatter that could you possibly fold here to just a single 3-bet. I mean, you're 2200 effective.
Yeah, we're deep enough to set mine at this point. So
Yeah, and it's not even just set mine though. I mean, it's one of these things where there's a difference. The difference between deuces and tens is that like you can continue and get to showdown with tens and win against a hand like ace king, ace queen, where it's really hard to do that with low pairs. So it's not just a set mine, and you know the guy behind you folded out. So I've got the pot of right around like 310ish, something like that.
yeah, I think the drop's like $7, so I just put it at 300.
All right, so we'll put it at 300. Okay, so 300 here. So you do have position in your heads up. Okay. Yep.
The flop is the jack of hearts, jack of clubs, and 5 of diamonds.
Jack of hearts, jack of clubs, 5 of diamonds. Okay.
And the straddle bets out 165.
All right, so straddle bets 165 here. So that's kind of an in-betweenish type of sizing. It's not quite 2/3. It's not really small. I would imagine that, especially with the profile that you're giving, where this guy tends to, you've seen him double flat a lot, that you probably have more Jack X here than he does. If he's even like 3-betting like ace jack, like the profile you gave isn't like a guy that's squeezing jack 10, queen jack. Now, with that being said, he doesn't necessarily realize that. So, you know, you've got the game tree that sort of goes off, but I'm just saying that there is that. All right, so he bets 165, okay?
And I just called.
All right. I mean, I think you have to call here, right? I mean, you can have the best hand here. Hero calls. You've got position. So
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking he could be c-betting a lot of his ace kings, maybe ace queen, something like that.
right.
I
So
mean, in terms of the hands that I beat.
sure. So the pot now is going to be $630 now. Okay. Now what's the turn?
The turn is the 6 of diamonds.
6 of diamonds, so it's jack of hearts, jack of clubs, 5 of diamonds, 165 call, turns the 6 of diamonds here with tens, with the 10 of diamonds, okay.
And then the straddle now bets 320, so right around half pot.
Wow. So the straddle bets $320 here. So you know that's a little bit I mean, it's just half the size of the pot. Again, when we look at live poker though, the pot's starting to get big, and sometimes you're actually looking at the absolute bet sizes as opposed to the percentage of pot in these spots. And these are starting to get large bets. And it is interesting because I do feel like a lot of aces and kings will slow down at some point. It's not a super draw heavy board here. I mean, it's just jack, jack 5. It's not like, flush draws and straight draws. So one could say that this might be a slightly polarizing bet where it's like, well, if he's checking a lot of aces and kings, is he just like, what is he betting here? Is this just a jack or continuing on with a bluff here?
Yeah, that's a good point. I was thinking because it's a small size, like he might still be trying to get some more value with his overpairs, or while also trying to push me out with something like ace king or something once in a while.
Right. So, I mean, in terms of turn pot odds, right, the pot's 950. And it's 320 for you to call. So you're getting 3-1. So you can look at this and you say, well, do I have the best hand here 1 out of 4 times? Plus also in other situations, you look also at your equity here. If you're beaten by an overpair, you don't have much equity, right? I mean, 2 outs. I mean, you have a sliver of equity. So yeah, I mean, I would still probably tend to use my position and call and see what he does here at the end, because again, one of the things here too, I think about small stakes patterns is that, like, if you call here again, it gets really interesting if the guy bets the river, because it is, even though, again, maybe theoretically correct, unless the guy is a very solid player at this level, an uncommon line to see somebody go, like say the river's a deuce or something like that. It's an uncommon line to see 3 fairly large bets with a hand like aces or kings. At some point, they will slow down, being considerate of the jack. But it sounds to me like you continued.
Yeah, I just called. I wasn't too thrilled about it, but I felt like I had to call and see what happens. And I'm just thinking that if he checks the river, I just snap check back and take a showdown.
You hope you beat like ace king or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. All right. So 1270 now, right? 640 plus 630 is
Yes.
1270. Okay.
Yep. So the river is the 7 of diamonds.
Okay, so the 7 of diamonds comes in. So it's jack of hearts, jack of clubs, 5 of diamonds, 6 of diamonds, 7 of diamonds. The only thing I'll say about that is it's not the it's not the biggest brick in the world if somebody was starting to structure correctly with some sort of, backdoor diamond draw and then continued on turn. Now you have a diamond in your hand, so that makes a little bit of difference because it's less of a chance that someone could have made a backdoor flush, because better to have the diamond in their hand than not have the diamond in your hand. Okay.
He now bets 500, which is
So the straddle now bets 500. So this is like 40% of pot ish, something like that. I mean,
something like that. Yeah,
it's not a gigantic
just
bet.
under 40%. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, you guys still have like, he still has 1,500 behind. And, right, he's got
I
15.
think he has another 1100.
Another 3, 5. Yes, you're right. I'm sorry. I thought you started with 2,500. Yeah, something like that. So another 11. So you started the river with like 1,600 or so.
Yes. Yep.
So what is your thinking right now? Do you think that do you think that you might have the best hand here 1 out of 4.5 times?
I wasn't sure. Like, yeah, I felt like the bet size was too small to let go of something like tens. But I mean, I also felt like the fact that he's betting so small. I mean, I don't know if this is the right way to think about it, but like the fact that he's betting so small means that he's kind of
Like a block?
scared of or he's scared of like me having a jack or I guess like, yeah, so like he might be betting to bet fold, and I started thinking like, what if I jam as a bluff?
Okay, so let's go over what if you jam as a bluff. Here's the thing. So now people might disagree with what I'm saying, but let's just say that this line is somewhat polarizing. Let's just make that assumption. And I want to tell you why I think turning a hand into a bluff against somewhat of a polarized range is probably not the best play. So if a polarized range is very, very strong or a bluff, then if he has a very strong hand, he's not going to fold. And if he has a bluff and you just call, you win. The other thing about this particular spot is, again, I have 20 years experience playing live poker. Two things have to happen for this, I would say, jam to be the best play over, say, call, or I guess fold, depending on what you're saying, is that he would have to take a hand like aces and kings and bet it for 3 streets, number one, which again, it's possible, but then he'd also have to fold too. So you had to have two things go on here. Like he could have aces and call off here, right? He could have aces and call off here. You are pretty much like if you jam, you're saying, all right, well, I've got, say, pockets. I don't know if you call the 3-bet here with 6s or 5s. Maybe slivers of 7s you get here to the end here too. The interesting part of this is that it's really hard for you to ever really have a backdoor flush on this distribution and this texture without it being jack X of diamonds, which is of course possible, but that's a jack anyways. What I mean by that is there's no like real wraparound backdoor draw here that you can really, I mean, I suppose you could have like I guess you could have something like king, queen of diamonds here, or I suppose have, yeah, I mean, I guess the Broadway diamonds, something like king, queen of diamonds, something like ace, queen of diamonds, something like that. I mean, if I was that guy and had aces with the ace of diamonds, I think it's a pretty slam dunk. And the thing about having aces with the ace of diamonds here too is that it cuts down on one of the combos of like jack X suited that you could have, which would be ace jack of diamonds if you had aces with the ace of diamonds. So those two things going on here kind of make me feel like if I were to just look at call versus jam as a bluff, I kind of like call better. That's just my opinion if I think that this is a polarizing type of thing. Because again, he has to take this line with something that is better than your hand and also fold it. Now, you definitely do have more jack X than the guy, but does he know that? So that's kind of my take here.
Yeah, I think so. What I was going for was to like represent something like a slow played jack X, which, because I have position, I guess I might play a lot of jack X that way, where I just call the flop and turn and then have him bet the river and then jam.
Some people are saying also fold that 500 is kind of value. Again, I think it is an interesting situation. The better the player, the more value that they can have here, the more sort of depolarized they are. Against typical opponents, this line it would surprise me to see, it's not impossible, but it would surprise me to see aces or kings go like this. And then again, it's a big leap to then also have them fold with just 1100 back. What did you end up doing here?
Yeah. Yeah, you're right that thinking back at it, I don't think those hands are folding anyway. So I
Well,
did
that's
end
a
up
problem
jamming.
then. That's a problem. If those hands weren't folding, that's a problem.
I mean, yeah, I sort of that's more like hindsight. Like I guess if he had aces or kings, he's probably never folding because it's only 1100 more for him to call, and then the pot is
Yeah, so you jam for
pot's like 3300 at that point.
so you jam for 1600 total. The pot's like
Yep,
3370. It's 1100 for him to call. So he's getting 3-1 anyways here
he's
too.
getting 3-1. Yeah.
So you jam for 1600 and what happens?
So now here's the fun part. He thought for like maybe less than 10 seconds and called.
Okay.
And then I just like shook my head and turned over my pocket tens, and he mucked.
What? So he calls and you shook your head because obviously this is one of these. And again, this is kind of funny just as a little add on too. You know, people talk about like, oh, so what is a slow roll and stuff. I mean, you are perfectly in your right to, when you get called, say good call, roll over 10-10, because 99% of the time you're going to be beaten here, right? When you're called.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I didn't take long to turn it over, or I didn't even say good call or anything. I just like shook my head, maybe sighed a little, and just turned it over.
And did he ever do a reveal or tell you what he had or anything like that?
No, yeah, I never found out what he had. He ended up leaving like maybe 10 minutes after this hand.
I mean, that's so crazy because like people are saying like 9-9. And again, it's just one of these things where 9-9 is just so, I mean, I was talking about a guy not even doing this with like aces. 9-9 is just, it's just, what does he think he's necessarily going to get called by? So I don't know, like, I mean, there are situations, and this is not one of them, by the way, where you can have a hand that you're bluffing with, like from your opponent's perspective, that sort of gets turned, like can sometimes turn into a bluff catcher. Meaning I can be bluffing with a hand where I do not expect the response to be raised. And then all of a sudden, when the response is raised, now my opponent is polarized. But what would he call here with like ace, king, ace of diamonds? Because you could still have a jack here. It's not like it's not like you're only jamming like nut flushes. So he calls with ace, king, ace of diamonds. That's not the scenario. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Set pocket sevens, pocket sixes, any jack. Yeah, that's so you jammed, you got called, but so you won this gigantic pot, but you still don't think the play might have been correct.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I'm not sure if jamming was the correct play here at all. And like,
Wow, that is quite the hand. I appreciate the call. Thank you very much.